It was 2015, the Amalfi Coast in southern Italy, where azure waves crash against cliffs, and lemon groves scatter their scent everywhere. Here lived Myra Rossi, a 28-year-old Italian artist whose days were filled with the salty tang of the sea and the vibrant chaos of her easel. Myra's eyes held the depth of the sea, stormy yet serene, and her paintings captured the glow of Amalfi, the way sunlight fractured on whitewashed walls, the fleeting shadows of fishing boats at dawn. She ran a small gallery tucked into a cliffside nook, its walls alive with her creations. Swirling seascapes and sun-bleached villas that drew tourists like moths to a flame. Locals whispered that Myra painted not just scenes, but souls, fragments of longing she glimpsed in the horizon. One sun-drenched afternoon, as Myra arranged her canvases, wiping sweat from her brow with a paint-streaked forearm, a knock echoed at the door. It was firm yet hesitant, like the rap of a wave testing the shore. In walked Hans Castillo, a 30-year-old Spanish engineer scouting road projects across Europe. Tall and weathered from years under open skies, Hans carried the faint scent of diesel and distant adventures. His smile was like a sunbeam piercing clouds, warm and disarming, and his eyes, dark, intelligent, flecked with gold, held a magic that instantly drew Myra in, as if they promised stories untold. He paused before a canvas of Amalfi's sunset, the sky bleeding orange into the Tyrrhenian sea, just like that first glance, can pull you into a stranger's world. What if this moment sparked your own unforgettable tale? Share in the comments below if a simple knock or chance meeting ever changed your path. Has a Hans walked into your gallery of life? Your paintings, they're like echoes of my memories, Hans said softly, his fingers tracing the canvas's edge with reverence, careful not to smudge the fresh oils. The light here, it's the same as the golden hour over the Sierra Nevada back home. You've captured something eternal. Myra turned, her heart skipping like a stone on water. She brushed a curl from her face, suddenly self-conscious of the azure streak on her cheek. Thank you. Not many see the echoes. I'm Myra, and you. You look like a man who's mapped more than just roads. Hans Castillo, he replied, extending a calloused hand. From Barcelona, but the continent's my canvas these days. Building bridges over rivers I never knew existed. This coast? It's a detour I didn't plan, but I'm glad for it. That meeting ignited a flame, slow burning at first, then roaring to life. Over the next hour, Hans lingered, sharing tales of his nomadic life, the roar of construction sites in the Pyrenees, the quiet nights under Basque stars where he'd sketch forgotten ruins by firelight. Myra invited him to her cozy cafe down the path, a hidden gem with terracotta floors and vines, creeping over wrought iron tables, for a pot of strong espresso and fresh cornetti. As the sun dipped low, casting the sea in molten gold, they talked through the night. Hans recounted childhood escapades in Spanish mountains, climbing olive groves with his brothers, the air thick with the promise of adventure. Myra opened up about her dreams, how art was her rebellion against a fisherman father's expectations, how each stroke was a whisper to the ghosts of lost loves. Laughter wove between their words, easy and electric, bridging the gap between strangers. In just 2 weeks, they couldn't imagine life without each other. Stolen mornings turned into lazy afternoons exploring hidden coves, where they'd picnic on prosciutto and figs, feet dangling in the cool waves. Evenings found them on Myra's gallery roof, wine in hand, watching fairies slice the horizon. Myra, you're the light that brightens my world, Hans whispered one night, his breath warm against her neck as stars pricked the velvet sky. Myra believed this was her life's most beautiful chapter, a romance scripted by the gods of the Mediterranean, full of color and endless possibility. 3 months later, as summer faded into amber autumn, Hans landed a major project in Germany's Bavarian region, a sprawling highway built near Munich, threading through emerald valleys and ancient forests. He returned from Barcelona one crisp evening, eyes alight with ambition, bursting through Myra's door with a bouquet of wild Amalfi lemons. Come with me, Myra, he urged, pulling her into a whirlwind embrace. We'll start fresh in Munich, your gallery reborn in the Alps, our home with a view of snow-capped peaks, a dream life where your art meets my blueprints. Say yes, let's chase this together. Myra hesitated, her fingers tracing the lemon's rough skin. Her roots ran deep in Amalfi, the salty air that fueled her brushes. Her aging mother, Nonna Rosa, whose arthritic hands still mended fishing nets and whose stories of wartime. Lovers filled quiet evenings, Hans, my world is here, she murmured, glancing at the sea through the window. Mama needs me. And these cliffs, they whisper to me. But Hans's eyes held promises. Visions of shared sunrises over Bavarian lakes, a life unbound by the sea's pull. His words wrapped around her like a shawl against the chill of doubt. With a deep breath and a tearful goodbye to Nonna, who pressed a locket of sea glass into her palm. Go, figlia mia, but carry the waves in your heart. Myra left it all behind, suitcase in hand, boarding a train north with Hans's hand steady in hers. In Munich, life felt like an old Spanish film, romantic, sepia-toned, laced with quiet magic. Hans rented a quaint apartment on Alpenpeller Street, a third-floor walk-up in a building of faded frescoes, with beer gardens, bustling below and the faint chime of church bells marking the hours. Inside, wooden beams arched overhead. A cast-iron stove crackled with logs from the nearby woods, and wide windows framed the sprawl of the city, golden spires piercing gray skies. The distant Alps like a promise on the horizon. Myra unpacked her paints amid the scent of fresh bread from the bakery downstairs, transforming a sunlit corner into her studio. She launched an online art studio, her fingers flying over canvases of Bavarian peaks. Mist-shrouded castles at dawn, edelweiss blooming defiant against rock. Orders trickled in from homesick expats, each sale a small victory. Hans worked late into the nights, poring over blueprints by lamplight, his brow furrowed in concentration. But each morning he'd wake her with a kiss on her temple, murmuring, Guten Morgen, my muse, before vanishing into the dawn fog. Evenings brought him home dusty and triumphant, arms laden with strudel from the market, collapsing beside her on the threadbare sofa. You're everything to me, he'd say, pulling her close as rain pattered the panes, their whispers blending with the city's hum. A year passed in this tender rhythm, seasons painting the city anew. Spring's cherry blossoms dusting the streets like confetti, summer's beer fests alive with oompa bands and laughter. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves swirled like embers outside, Myra discovered she was pregnant. She waited for Hans at the kitchen table, a positive test clutched in trembling hands, her heart a drumbeat of joy and fear. When he burst through the door, she rose, eyes shining. Hans, our family is growing, she exclaimed, voice breaking with delight. He froze, then swept her into his arms, spinning her gently until dizziness claimed them both. Laughter bubbled as he knelt, pressing his ear to her still flat belly. A little adventurer, he breathed. We'll marry soon, proper, with vows under the Bavarian moon if you wish. I'll never leave you two. This is our forever. Myra dreamed of names through those glowing months. Lorenzo for a boy, evoking Renaissance fire. Isabella for a girl, a nod to her own fierce spirit. Life felt complete, a canvas stretched taut with possibility. Every brushstroke deliberate and true. December 2016 arrived with winter's grip tight, the air sharp as shattered glass. Snow blanketed Munich in hush, turning beer gardens into fairy tale realms. Hans's project wrapped amid celebrations, beers raised in a smoky gasthaus, backslaps from crewmates, but a new call beckoned. A tunnel build in Austria's Tyrol, carving through the stubborn heart of the Alps near Innsbruck. Just 2 weeks, Myra, he said one frosty dawn, sliding into his coat as she packed, his bag with wool, socks and thermoses of minestrone. 6 months pregnant now, her belly a gentle swell under her sweater. Myra waved goodbye from the frosted window, hand pressed to the glass. Drive safe, the snow's heavy this year, and those passes are unforgiving, she warned, a knot of unease twisting in her gut. Hans grinned, blowing a kiss. I'll call every night from the site. Think of wedding dresses, something with lace like the waves back home. His taillights faded into the whitening world, leaving Myra to cradle her bump, humming lullabies to the life within. 2 weeks came and went like ghosts in the mist. No word from Hans. Myra called his mobile, left voicemails laced with worry. Are you warm? Is the tunnel holding? Texted photos of her latest sketch, a cradle carved like a boat. Silence answered, heavy as the accumulating snow. She paced the apartment, brewing endless chamomile, staring at the blank screen until her eyes burned. On the 3rd week, as a blizzard howled outside, a frantic knock shattered the quiet. Marcus, Hans's old engineer colleague, a burly Austrian with a mustache like a broom, stood on the threshold, face ashen, snow melting into puddles on the mat. Myra, Hans, he didn't make it? he said, head bowed, voice cracking. There was an accident on the pass. We're still piecing it together, but I'm so sorry. The truth, buried under layers of cowardice, was far crueler. Hans's car had skidded on Tyrol's icy mountain road, tires losing grip on a hairpin turned slick with fresh powder, plunging into a ravine blanketed in snow. The engine exploded in flames, a roar that echoed off the peaks like thunder's wrath. He escaped barely, crawling through acrid smoke, singed clothes clinging to blistered skin, the cold biting deeper than any fire. Thoughts of Myra flooded him, not as a beacon to return, but a burden too heavy for his fractured frame. She's pregnant. How can I go back broken? A scarred wreck dragging her down? He thought, panic clawing his chest amid the wreckage. In a haze of fear and self-preservation, Hans turned off his phone, shed his identity like a snake's skin, and fled eastward. He crossed into Switzerland under a false alias, the Alps his unwitting accomplices, landing a shadowy job in Zurich's engineering underbelly. He abandoned Myra to die, his pregnant fiancée, alone in a foreign city, penniless after wiring her his last euros, clueless to his survival. Myra learned of his death through Marcus's halting details, the mangled car, the flames too fierce for rescue. Her heart shattered like the ravine's ice, shards embedding deep. She wept until her throat rawed, screamed into pillows until neighbors knocked with concerned murmurs. But the baby became her anchor, a fierce kick against her palm, a reminder of life persisting. Days blurred into a fog of grief, until one night, a week after the news, labor hit early and vicious, contractions like knives in the chill hospital ward. Doctors fought valiantly under fluorescent lights, monitors, beeping frantic symphonies, nurses murmuring encouragements in clipped German. But the stress proved too much. The child, a girl, Isabella, tiny and perfect with Myra's sea-deep eyes, slipped away after mere hours, her breaths fading like whispers on wind. Myra's world ended in that bassinet silence, her arms empty, her soul adrift. She retreated to a Bavarian village nestled in the foothills, a cluster of timbered houses where goats roamed and church bells tolled softly at dusk. Her cousin Maria, a sturdy widow with flower-dusted aprons and a heart wide as the valleys, took her in, brewing herbal teas and holding vigil through endless nights. "Is he really gone, Myra? Just like that?" Maria asked one evening as they sat by the hearth, embers glowing like fallen stars. Myra nodded, staring into the flames. But inside, she was already dead, a hollow shell sketching ghosts on scraps of paper. Years slipped by like pages in a forgotten diary, each one etched with quiet survival. Myra channeled her grief into paint, her brushes weapons against the void. Canvases multiplied in Maria's attic, tempests of blue and black, giving way to tentative golds, ravines blooming with improbable wildflowers. By 2017, the weight of Munich's memories grew too heavy. She packed her life's remnants and fled south again, not to Amalfi but to Provence in France. Amid lavender fields that stretched like violet seas under golden sunlight, the air hummed with bees and earth, a balm to her wounds. In a stone cottage on the outskirts of Avignon, she rebuilt, walls lined with easels, windows flung open to sunflowers nodding in the breeze. In 2018, she opened a new gallery, echoes of light, in a cobbled square where fountains bubbled, and market stalls overflowed with olives and herbs. Her works whispered tales of sorrow and hope, fractured mirrors mending into prisms, shadows stretching toward dawn. Word spread through the region's art circles, drawing wanderers and connoisseurs. One lavender-scented afternoon, an elderly visitor, Pierre Vincent, a Paris art dealer with silver hair and a tweed jacket patched at the elbows, stopped by. He lingered before a piece of a woman rising from icy depths, her form half submerged, half ascending. "Your art holds pain, but power too," he said, voice gravelly with years. "It's not mere beauty, it's resurrection. Let me champion you, mademoiselle. Paris awaits and beyond." Pierre became her North Star, arranging exhibitions in Montmartre's shadowed ateliers, negotiating sales to collectors in Lyon and Nice. Myra's pieces gained fame across Europe, hung in Berlin lofts, gracing Milan salons, each sale a thread stitching her fractured self. Yet she swore off love. Her heart, scarred by Hans's deceit, armored itself in solitude. Suitors came, charming vignerons with wine-stained smiles, poets with verses like silk, but she turned away, her nights filled with the echo of Isabella's imagined laughter, the ghost of Hans's false vows. But in 2020, Amid the pandemic's pause, the world locked in uneasy quiet, streets empty as forgotten canvases, Myra found her voice in words. Holed up in her Provence cottage, rain lashing the lavender, she penned her debut novel Icy Vows, a veiled tapestry of betrayal. A lover's crash not of body, but of promises. The chill of abandonment thawing into fierce rebirth. Names blurred, details softened, but the ache pulsed true. Self-published at first, it caught fire in online forums, book clubs in lockdown London, therapy circles in Rome, becoming a bestseller that transformed her into a renowned author. Interviews followed, her poised face on French talk shows, her words a lifeline for the heartbroken. Money flowed like the Rhone in spring, enough for expansions, travels, a scholarship fund for young artists in Amalfi. But Justice's thirst lingered, a low simmer beneath her calm. Late nights she'd pore over old photos, whispering to the dark, "Is he alive? Does he regret the grave he dug for us?" One evening in a Paris cafe, its windows fogged against the autumn chill, Myra sought refuge from a book signing's clamor. Sipping espresso amid the murmur of massed patrons, her eyes snagged on a faded news clipping tucked in a discarded International. Herald Tribune, Spanish engineer Hans Castillo rises to Zurich. CO, from Tyrol tunnels to Alpine empires. Her pulse raced. A thunder in her veins. The cup trembled in her grip, coffee spilling like ink. He lived. The photo showed him older, sharper suited, silver threading his temples, smiling at a gala amid Zurich's glittering elite. He'd built a new life, wealthy, successful, ensconced in Switzerland's alpine valleys, his firm bridging continents with steel and ambition. Rage and relief warred within her, but resolve hardened like drying oils. That night, back in her Montmartre hotel, Myra hired a private investigator. Lisbeth Jordan, a sharp Danish woman with ice-blue eyes and a network spanning Scandinavia to the Riviera. Over encrypted calls, Lisbeth unraveled the threads. Hans's alias shed like an old coat. His Zurich penthouse with lake views. His courtship of a new world. "He's marrying next month, Myra," Lisbeth revealed one foggy morning, her voice crisp over the line. In Zurich, a grand affair at a lakeside castle. His bride's Sonja Larsson, Swedish model, all poise and privilege. Guests from Berlin boardrooms to Barcelona vineyards. But the past, it's a blank page to them. Myra's breath steadied, a plan blooming like nightshade. "Good, send the details. I'll be there, not as a ghost, but a reckoning." Summer 2025 bloomed hot and golden. A grand castle by Lake Zurich hosted Hans Castillo's wedding. Its turrets piercing the sky like forgotten nights, fairy lights draping the gardens where swans glided on glassy waters. His bride, Sonja Larsson, a Swedish model with cascade of blonde waves and a gown of ivory silk, shared his triumphs, her agency funding his expansions, their life a glossy magazine spread. Guests included Europe's elite, German tycoons in bespoke suits, nursing steins of rare Riesling, Italian artists with paint-flecked cuffs, debating aesthetics over caviar, Spanish investors, Hans's old Barcelona shadows toasting to fortunes remade. Hans, now 40, beamed as if nothing had happened, his laugh rich amid the string quartet's swell. "This is my fresh start," he told Sonja in a stolen moment by the rose arbor, clinking champagne flutes. "No regrets, only us." On the wedding morning, as guests gathered in the grand hall, crystal chandeliers tinkling, the air thick with orchids and anticipation, a knock resounded, deliberate as a heartbeat. The heavy oak door creaked open, admitting a woman, tall, radiant in a crimson gown that flowed like spilled wine, her dark hair pinned with a single Amalfi pearl, her eyes stormy as winter gales over the Tyrol. Whispers died. Forks paused midair. "Hans Castillo?" she said, voice steady, carrying the lilt of southern seas. Hands turned from the altar's edge, flute in hand and his face drained of color, the champagne forgotten. Myra, you're alive?" The words choked out, a gasp from a drowning man. Yes, it was Myra Rossi, now a world-famous artist and author, her name etched in gallery plaques from Provence to Prague. Guests fell silent, a collective intake like wind before a squall. Sonja glanced at Hans, her blue eyes clouding with puzzlement, hand tightening on her bouquet. Myra smiled faintly, a curve of lips that held no warmth, only the edge of forged steel. "Thank you for the unspoken invitation. Hans, I'm here to join your new chapter, to ensure it's written in full light, no shadows lingering. She drew an envelope from her clutch. Elegant vellum, sealed with wax the color of dried blood. Handing it to Sonia, whose fingers trembled as she broke the seal, Myra watched as old photos spilled forth. Hans and Myra laughing on Amalfi cliffs, her hand on her belly in Munich snow, yellowed accident reports from Tyrol, detailing the crash but not the escape. A worn copy of Icy Vows, its pages dog-eared, unseen by him till now. Gasps rippled as Sonia scanned the words. This is your story, Hans, Myra continued, her tone even. A storyteller unveiling the final act. The one you left me to die in. I brought it to life, stroke by stroke, word by word. Your lies whispered in that ravine. Your flight across borders. Name changed like a coat for winter. Your fake death, a coward's shroud. It's all here. The baby we lost. The nights I clawed from despair. And soon the world will know. Not as scandal's hiss, but truth's quiet roar. Myra pulled out her phone, a sleek device that hummed to life. She tapped play, and the hall's massive screen, meant for vows, flickered with a live feed. Her art exhibition in Zurich's Central Gallery that very day, Shadows to Dawn. Canvases loomed large, icy roads cracking under dawn's assault, figures emerging from frost into bloom, narrated by Myra's own recorded voice, soft yet unyielding, unveiling Hans's tale without naming violence, only the ache of abandonment, the weight of choices unmade. No hate scorched the air, just truth, raw and revealing, like sunlight on hidden scars. Hans's world crumbled in that moment, knees buckling as he gripped the altar for support. The envelope trembled in Sonia's hands. She scanned the final pages. Myra's dedication, to the promises that froze, and the light that thawed them. Tears welled, tracing silver paths down her cheeks. You abandoned a pregnant woman? Sonia whispered, voice breaking like fine crystal. Left her to grieve alone while you built this. This lie? Whispers rippled through the crowd. A tide turning, phones discreetly raised. Alliances shifting like sand. Hans collapsed to his knees on the marble floor, sobbing raw and unrestrained, the sound echoing off vaulted ceilings. Forgive me, Myra. I was scared, the fire's grip, the scars that wouldn't fade, the fear I'd poison your joy. I thought vanishing was mercy. God, what have I done? Myra nodded once, her expression a mask of composed sorrow. No triumph, only the weight of years carried alone. Seek forgiveness from Sonia, who trusted your clean slate, and yourself in the mirror of what you've wrought. I've claimed my dawn, Hans. Now face your night. She turned and walked out. A storm that came and went, her gown whispering against stone steps. The door closed with a soft thud, sealing the chaos behind. Outside, in Zurich's sunlight, warm and indifferent, gilding the lake to molten silver, Myra paused at the gravel path's edge. A courier waited, bearing her latest painting, freshly crated, an icy path yielding to light, fractures webbing toward a horizon ablaze. She traced its surface, a faint smile breaking through. The air tasted of pine and promise. Aftermath rippled like aftershocks. Hans's wedding dissolved in a flurry of canceled toasts and departing limos. Sonia fleeing in a haze of hurt, her agency severing ties by dusk. Hans lost it all, reputation fracturing like the Tyrol ice. Business deals evaporating as headlines bloomed. CEO's hidden past, a tale of abandonment and art. He retreated to a quiet village in the Swiss lowlands, a thatched cottage where goats grazed and clocks ticked slow. There, in ink-stained solitude, he penned an apology to Myra, a tome of regrets. Confessions of nightmares haunted by Isabella's eyes, mailed to Provence, where it gathered dust on a shelf, unread amid her blooming life. In Provence, amid the endless sway of lavender, Myra founded a center for betrayed women. Dawn's Echo, a sunlit haven of stone barns turned studios, where art therapy flowed like wine at harvest. Women gathered, Italian widows sketching lost futures, German mothers weaving tapestries of resilience, Danish divorcees voicing novels from pain, stories shared over communal tables, brushes dipped in shared grief, healing woven like threads in a grand, unfinished quilt. 10 years on, from that fateful Amalfi knocked to Zurich's reckoning, Myra learned revenge blooms from truth, not blood. It's the slow unfurling of petals after frost, not thorns drawn in fury. Hans discovered in his village exile that running changes nothing. The past clings like burrs to a wanderer's coat. This tale reminds us, after the storm, light always breaks through. You just need the strength to see it, the courage to step into its glow. If Myra's journey of resilience sparks something in you, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of redemption, and share it with a friend who needs to remember. Your dawn is coming. Thanks for joining the journey.